License? Registration? Or just a bunch of old excuses, old man? Trent, a young officer, hot-headed and impatient, smirked as he circled the rusted pickup truck. The man behind the wheel said nothing. Silver hair, weathered face, his hands, sun-worn and scarred, rested steady on the wheel, calm, like a stone in the eye of a storm. Trent thought he was just a nobody, someone to ticket, to teach a lesson, but not even an hour later. A black SUV rolled up. A four-star general stepped out. No need for introductions, no wasted words. He pointed and spoke just six. "You just stopped the man who trained me." And in that moment, they realized the man they looked down on was a living legend. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. I wasn't supposed to be on shift that day. I had swapped with Parker last minute so he could attend his kid's school recital. Funny how fate works. The sun had just crept over the rooftops of Mapleton, Virginia, a sleepy, tucked-away town where mornings usually meant nothing more than waving at joggers and helping old ladies cross Main Street. I'd been on the force for 5 years and could count the real incidents on one hand. That morning, I was riding with Officer Trent Mercer. Young, cocky, always with a toothpick in his mouth and something to prove. We were parked outside Linda's Donuts when the radio crackled about a suspicious vehicle heading down Route 9. Rusty old pickup, no visible plates, weaving a little. Trent was already shifting into gear. Bet it's some drunk who wandered out of the woods. 2 minutes later, we caught sight of it. An old blue Ford pickup, late 60s model by the look of it, with a wooden flatbed and faded Army decals barely visible beneath the layers of rust. It rattled and coughed like it might fall apart at any moment. We hit the lights. The truck pulled over gently without hesitation. No sudden moves. Just a calm roll onto the gravel shoulder. I stayed in the car while Trent got out, already strutting like he was about to make the bust of the year. I watched through the windshield as he approached the driver's side, knocking on the hood with the back of his hand. "License? Registration? Or just some good excuses, old man?" he said loud enough for me to hear. The driver didn't argue, didn't even look up. He kept both hands on the wheel, scarred, steady hands, sun-worn skin. A frayed green cap sat low over his brow. Trent looked back at me with a smirk. No plates, no tags, probably stolen. I stepped out and walked over slowly. "Sir," I said, trying to soften things. "Do you have ID?" The man nodded, reached slowly into his flannel pocket, and handed me a worn leather wallet. Inside was a Virginia driver's license. Name, Walter J. Maddox, age 84. "Since 1969, he said softly, eyes still forward. "Built this truck myself." Trent scoffed. "Yeah? Still road legal in 69, too?" He popped the back latch without asking. In the flatbed were long pieces of lumber, bolts, and sealed boxes of metal fittings. "What's all this?" "For a wheelchair ramp," Maddox replied. "Neighbor just got home from the hospital." Trent let out a sharp laugh. "Sure it is." Something about the way Maddox didn't react struck me. He wasn't afraid, wasn't angry, just still, like a stone that had seen 1,000 storms. I spotted a small notebook on the seat beside him. Names written in it, some crossed out, some marked with stars. He didn't hide it. "What's this, sir?" "Men I served with." I paused. "You were in the service?" He nodded. "Most of my life." Trent rolled his eyes and whispered, "Bet he thinks he's some war hero." But Walter Maddox said nothing. Not when we pulled him out of the vehicle. Not when Trent made him sit on the curb. Not when people started slowing down to film on their phones. He just sat there, straight-backed, silent, patient. And that's when everything started to change. The heat was starting to rise off the pavement. It shimmered above the hood of Maddox's truck. But the man didn't flinch. Just sat there with the same dignity he had when we first stopped him. His cap now cast a sharper shadow across his cheekbones. Trent was getting restless. He walked in circles around the truck, muttering things under his breath. "You think he even knows where he is? Maybe we ought to call social services." "Let's just run the plates," I offered, though even as I said it, I knew we wouldn't find much. The truck didn't have standard plates, Just a small brass emblem bolted to the rear bumper. Looked old. Military, maybe. Faded with time. "What's this?" Trent asked, prying it off. "Leave it," I said. "Could be a historical vehicle tag." But he was already walking it to the cruiser. Meanwhile, I stayed near Maddox. He looked tired, but not weak. There was a difference. "You okay, sir?" I asked. "I've been through worse," he replied. "Much worse." He reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out a folded photograph, black and white, a group of young soldiers, muddy, weary, smiling. Maddox was in the center, younger, eyes just as sharp. "Columbia." "86, he said. Before I could ask anything else, Trent called me over. "Dispatch says nothing stolen, no warrants, no wants. Just an expired registration and what they think might be a DOD-exempt plate. They're checking." I nodded. "So we let him go?" Trent snorted. "We write him up. 3 violations minimum. Unsafe vehicle, no plates, expired reg. Might teach him to stay off the road." I didn't like it. Something about the whole thing felt off. As we stood there talking, a teenager on a bike rolled past, slowing down enough to pull out his phone. "Yo, this dude gets arrested or what?" Trent flashed a grin and flexed a little. "Just doing our jobs." The kid laughed and snapped a picture. Walter Maddox, sitting quietly on the curb, became someone's trending topic for a few minutes. A few more cars slowed down. A couple in a red sedan rolled their window down, watching. A man at the gas station across the street squinted in our direction, pulled out his flip phone, and made a call. That's when Maddox dropped the photo. I bent to pick it up, but he stopped me with a look. "You don't need to touch that," he said calmly. "Some things are sacred." His voice was like gravel and river stone, and for the first time I started to feel small. Not because of anything he did, but because deep down, I knew we were making a mistake. A little girl walked by holding her mother's hand. She stared at Maddox and whispered, "Is he in trouble?" Her mom gave me a look that said more than words ever could, and we weren't the only ones watching anymore. More onlookers had gathered now, half curious, half concerned. Someone across the street started recording with a camcorder instead of a phone. That's how you knew it wasn't just for clicks anymore. It was someone old enough to remember when respect meant something. I watched as Maddox rubbed his knees, slow and careful, like a man who knew every tendon and scar by name. He didn't complain, didn't groan, just shifted slightly on the curb and resumed his steady breathing. Trent came back with 2 citation slips already half filled. "We'll get him for registration and plate display," he said. "Let's toss in equipment violation for the cracked windshield too." 3 tickets? Rules are rules. He walked over to Maddox and crouched down, holding the clipboard. "You understand you're being cited, right?" Maddox didn't answer. He looked straight ahead, watching the wind stir leaves down the gutter. "Sir, you need to acknowledge." "I understand," Maddox said softly. Then from behind us, a voice called out, "That's Mr. Maddox. He built the ramp at my sister's place last year. Didn't charge her a dime." We turned to see a woman in scrubs holding a brown paper bag from the pharmacy. "He helped during the flood 2 years back, too." Someone else chimed in. A man with a cane stepped forward. "He drove my wife to the VA hospital every week for almost a year." The trickle turned into a current. A half dozen people started stepping forward, speaking up. None of them shouted. None of them made a scene. Just quiet, steady voices like Maddox's own, each telling a piece of the story we hadn't cared to ask. Trent looked uncomfortable now, scribbling faster on his clipboard. I took a step back, trying to process it all. I felt like a dam was cracking inside my chest. Then I saw it, the corner of a folded letter sticking out of Maddox's glove box, barely peeking through the edge. I reached in and slid it free. Department of the Army, embossed seal, official. Trent leaned over my shoulder. "What is that?" I unfolded it slowly. It was a commendation. Signed by the Secretary of Defense. Below it, another envelope. This one marked Presidential Unit Citation. What the hell? And that's when the black SUV turned the corner. And everything we thought we knew about that morning was about to change. The black SUV didn't cruise. It moved with authority. Dark tinted windows, government plates, tires humming low like they knew where they were going. It turned off Maple Street and pulled up behind our patrol car like it had every right to own the road. Trent stiffened. You expecting someone? Nope, I said, stepping forward. The back passenger door opened. Out stepped a man in full dress uniform, 4 stars on each shoulder, crisp, polished, still as a statue. His eyes scanned the scene once before locking onto Maddox. Without saluting, without hesitation, he pointed directly at us. Which of you stopped this man? The words weren't loud, but they carried. Every bystander heard them. The air turned electric. Trent opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The general stepped forward. That man, he said, nodding toward Maddox, trained me. He taught me to lead. He saved my unit when I was fresh out of the academy, lost in the swamps at Fort McClellan in '83. He turned toward Maddox. Permission to assist you, Sergeant Major. Maddox finally moved. He nodded once. Permission granted. The general walked over and extended a hand, but Maddox stood up on his own. His spine straightened. Even after everything, the man rose without a word, as if duty itself had lifted him. The crowd was silent now. Even the cicadas seemed to pause. The general faced us again. This truck, he said, gesturing to the rusted Ford, is a registered Department of Defense vehicle, exempt under historical and ceremonial use. The documentation has been filed annually, including with your department. Check your records. Trent looked pale. I felt a chill run through me, not from fear, but from shame. The general's aide approached, holding a dark leather folder embossed with the presidential seal. He handed it to Trent. That's Sergeant Major Walter Maddox's public service record. The unclassified version, the general said dryly. I suggest you read it. Trent took it, but didn't say a word. 3 bronze stars, the general continued. 2 Purple Hearts. Helped lead the extraction of 23 hostages from the Colombian jungle in 1986. Designed survival techniques still taught in advanced special ops today. And he built that wheelchair ramp for Mrs. Ellington without charging a cent. More murmurs now, but not the kind from confusion or gossip. These were whispers of recognition. An elderly man in a VFW hat raised his voice. He taught my grandson how to make a tourniquet using a shoelace and a stick. Kid never forgot it. A nurse stepped up beside the crowd. He's donated blood every month for the last 25 years. Never missed. Not once. The general let them speak. He didn't need to prove anything. Then slowly, he turned back to Maddox and gave the sharpest salute I've ever seen. And Maddox finally returned it. You disrespected the wrong man today, the general said, lowering his hand. But what matters now is what you do next. Trent mumbled something. An apology, maybe. It didn't matter. Maddox looked at him, steady as ever. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to the next old man before you assume he's nobody. The general clapped a hand on Maddox's shoulder. The two stood together, brothers in service, though one clearly outranked the other. And in that moment, we all saw it. This wasn't just a man with a truck. This was a monument that happened to breathe. The crowd lingered long after the general left. People didn't speak loudly. They didn't need to. Everyone had seen something they couldn't unsee, something humbling, something true. The general's SUV pulled away, and the aide gave one final nod before closing the door. I watched the taillights disappear around the corner of Maple and Ridge. Trent just stood there, still holding the folder with Maddox's record like it weighed 100 pounds. Maddox turned to leave, but before he did, he looked me square in the eye. Son, he said quietly, never forget. Not every uniform comes with a title, but every act of service leaves a mark. Then he tipped his cap, climbed into his truck, and started the engine. It roared to life, old, proud, scarred, like him. And when that truck pulled out onto the road, the strangest thing happened. 2 patrol cars, ours and the backup unit that had just arrived, moved out of his way. Not because he demanded it, but because we knew he deserved it. We didn't just let him pass. We cleared the road. Over the next week, word spread like wildfire. The video from someone's phone went viral, 8.3 million views in 3 days. News vans parked near the gas station. The mayor issued a statement. Veterans groups organized events in his honor. But Maddox didn't attend any of them. He went right back to work. A week later, I saw him hauling lumber again. This time for a young Marine amputee who just moved to town. I stopped by. off duty just to help him drill holes in a railing. He never brought up the incident. I did. Why didn't you fight back that day, I asked. He paused, then looked over his shoulder at the ramp we were building. Because if I did, you wouldn't be here helping me right now. I didn't have anything to say to that. Just kept drilling. A few days later, the sheriff's department implemented a new training module: community awareness and veteran respect. Guess who taught the first session? Walter J. Maddox. He didn't talk about medals. He didn't talk about wars. He just told a room full of rookies one sentence: service doesn't end with the uniform. Neither should the respect for it. They wrote it on the whiteboard. Then they printed it. Now it hangs in every hallway of our station. Months passed, but the story didn't fade. Veterans started coming by just to shake his hand. Local kids followed him around like he was some kind of myth. And maybe he was. One morning, I spotted him driving that same truck down Main Street. Only this time, something had changed. As he passed by the corner where it all happened, someone had placed a plaque. It read, "You never know who you're stopping," and next to it, a simple bronze figure of a man in a cap, seated on a curb, hands on his knees, calm, still, waiting. A monument that breathes, just like him. In our darkest moments, kindness still finds a way, often in the quietest places. Not everyone who helps wants recognition. Some just need to know that today, someone isn't going hungry. And sometimes, that alone is enough to change a life. You may forget the story, but if no one retells it, history stays silent forever. Subscribe to Grateful Stories, where justice is honored, kindness is remembered, and no act of quiet heroism is ever lost.